Frick, I almost sneezed there for a second. That would have been fun. If I did sneeze. But I didn't, and that's all that matters in this world. Hello everyone, my name's Stonesy Boy, and welcome back to Reading with Stonesy. Today we are reading pages 201 to 217, the final episode of Tales from the Pizza Plex number 3, Somniphobia. For the final book, it's been kind of weak, but also kind of really good at the same time. Of course, we're gonna have a tier list later instead of the normal last episode, that we normally do here on this channel that I love so much. So yeah, we're gonna have that instead. I'm gonna show that off soon. But yeah, so it's gonna be weird, but it's that's okay. And yeah. So without further ado, let's begin. Why don't you have one of those hide-a-key rocks? Tate asked Ronan, signaled to turn into employee parking lot in the back of the Pizzaplex. Ronan didn't think he had to explain anything to Tate. The guy didn't have any right to complain about they had to come back to Ronan's house keys. Ronan gave Tate a ride every day, and Tate never paid for gas. Yet, when Ronan wanted to turn around and go back for his keys, Tate had the nerve to ask Ronan to go to the remaining 5 miles to Tate's apartment building before returning to the Pizzaplex. Ronan had ignored him and had made a U-turn. For the first half hour, Tate had been grousing. It's bad enough we have 45-minute commute to start with. Now we have to go back and nearly all of it again? Those fake rocks aren't safe, Ronan told Tate now. Burglars know about them, and they looked for them before they bother to break into the home. I read an article about it. Tate rolled his eyes. Whatever. He stared sullenly out of the passenger window. Ronan pulled his minivan to the assigned parking spot, 2 down from Grady's. Grady's old pickup was still there. Obviously, he hadn't yet finished his safety checks. Ronan concentrated on positioning the minivan precisely between the lines. When he was satisfied, he put the transmission in park. Tate frowned and looked potentially at the 100 yards between Ronan's spot and the employee entrance. Why are you parking all the way over there? Ronan turned off the minivan. This is my spot, he explained patiently. Tate threw up his hands. But there is no one around. You could just pull up to the curb. He pointed toward the employee entrance. Ronan raised an eyebrow. That's a no parking zone. Ronan opened the car door. Come on. Tate gave Ronan a look. Why do I have to go with you? I'll just leave the keys and hang here and listen to the tunes. Ronan threw Tate's look right back at him. I may look big and dumb, but I'm not. I'm not leaving you with the keys to old Betty. Come on. Ronan gave Tate his best glare. His sister, Rhonda, told him he looked terrifying when he did that. He thought it was a hoot, because she knew Ronan didn't even like swatting mosquitoes. But Rhonda must have been right about it, because people tended to do whatever Ronan wanted when he gave him the glare. Tate, despite being one of the laziest people Ronan had ever met, was no exception. Tate grumbled and got out of the minivan. Ronan carefully locked it up, and 2 men headed toward the employee entrance. You're one weird dude, Tate told Ronan. If Ronan ever gotten $1 for any time Tate had said that to him, he'd have enough money to buy yarn for a shawl he wanted to knit for his mother. Tate couldn't seem to get over the fact that Ronan was both a bodybuilder and a knitter. And he was in a local fight club, and he also owned a minivan named Betty, so he would drive his knitting club members to textile conventions and knit-alongs. Ronan, however, couldn't care less what Tate thought of him, or what anyone thought of him, or that matter. Okay, we hurried up? Tate asked, trotting on ahead of Ronan. I told you I'm supposed to meet Karen at the lake. Now I'm going to be late. You're always late. She'll expect it, Ronan said. He didn't pick up the place. That's low, dude, Tate said. Ronan ignored him. He dug his Pizzaplex keys out in his pants pocket and then had them ready when they reached the door. Tate rushed through the door ahead of Ronan as soon as Ronan unlocked the door and deactivated the alarm. And Tate bounced like a kid who needed to pee while Ronan locked the door behind him and reactivated the alarm. How could you be any slower, Tate complained. Ronan pocketed the Pizzaplex keys again and put his hands to his hips. I'm sure I can. Tate exhaled loudly, but he couldn't speak as they strode through the gray double doors leading to the employee break room. Tate meandered into the break room, heading toward the cubby holes where they were supposed to leave the reports by the end of the day. Tate was probably going to look for Ronan's and Grady's to compare their progress on his own. Tate was lazy, but he knew it was also strangely competitive. Ronan held into a dingy locker room with its beige paint job and low wattage light bulbs that surprised contrast the screamingly bright colors and lights of the main part of the Pizzaplex. Ronan figured Fazbear Entertainment didn't want to spend any more money than necessarily on their employees. He couldn't really complain, though. His salary was good, his job had given him the down payment to buy his first house. He had no beef with Fazbear Entertainment. They could paint their locker rooms in any boring color they wanted. Ronan opened his locker and rummaged around with his toolkit. He kept his house keys in a backpack. When he grabbed it when he and Tate had left, his keys, however, must have slipped back when he got his lunch for the pack earlier that day. Yep, there they were. They fallen behind his spare uniform shirt. Ronan grabbed the keys and closed his rocker. He turned. "Hey, Ronan," Tate called. "Come here a second." Ronan strode into the employee break room. He just found Tate rifling through Grady's paperwork just as Ronan had suspected. "Why are you looking at Grady's stuff?" Ronan asked, as if he didn't know. Tate didn't answer the question. He waved a sheaf of paper. "Did you know he was going to Belores next? I thought he was going to do that next week, but he scheduled it for today." Ronan gave Tate a "what's your point" look. Tate grinned. "He's probably down there right now. I can imagine him squeezing through those tubes." He whooped in laughter. Tate scuffed Grady's papers back in the slot. "Come on, let's go check on him." Ronan raised both eyebrows. "I thought you were in a hurry. You said you were going to be late." Tate waved to the area. "I'm already late. What's the matter if I'm a little bit later? Karen can wait." Karen was a terrible tasting man, Ronan thought. He met Karen. She was cute and seemed sweet. What did she see in Tate? "All right," Ronan said. He had no trouble with checking on Grady. He'd been reluctant to leave Grady alone in the first place. He didn't like breaking the rules, but Grady had insisted, and Roman wanted to get home. He planned on making one hummus dip and homemade whole wheat pita bread at knitting club meeting. But now he wouldn't have time for bread. Well, he could still do the dip. Even he and Tate look a few minutes to go down to Belora's. "Even if I didn't have bad knees," Tate was saying as they walked to the main concourse, "I still wouldn't have done Belora's. Those tunnels are too small, and I don't even have claustrophobia or anything. Not like Grady." "Grady doesn't have claustrophobia," Ronan said. "He has cleithrophobia." Tate ignored him. "Whatever. It's a fear of being trapped," Ronan explained. "People with claustrophobia don't like small spaces, whether they're trapped or not. People with cleithrophobia can tolerate small spaces as long as they know where they can come and go. They're afraid of being stuck." Tate raised an eyebrow. "How do you know all that?" Tate shrugged. "I read." Ronan lengthened his stride and Tate tried to keep up. "But why do you know that's what Grady has?" Tate asked. Ronan flicked a glance at Tate. "I listened." Tate didn't answer. He probably didn't even gotten the dig. He looked at the darkened entrance of the roleplay area. He waved a hand toward it. "In the morning, I'll be checking the sets in here. Can't wait to see what they've done to the Fazbear Fright Haunted House. I was so stoked when I saw it on the specs." Not for the first time, Ronan wondered how Tate managed to do his job. Not that he did it that well. Ronan and Grady both had covered for Tate too many times to count. Tate's words was haphazard and incomplete. The man's mind was like a squirrel. It was constantly darting from here and there and back again, and eventually it led back around to the previous conversation. Who would want to be trapped? Ronan didn't bother answering and figured the rhetorical question. He kept his gaze straight ahead, making sure he didn't look at the swings. In fact, security lights, the swings looked too much like giant squid or suited Ronan. Ronan didn't like squids. They were gushy. Ronan didn't like gushy. Ronan's mother often teased him about how he had a soft stomach when it came to things like squids and slugs or worms or anything having the inside of a human body. Rock hard abs on the outside and soft and gooey on the inside, she always teased him. Ray jogged out ahead of Ronan in a long red hallway that led to Belora's. When they reached the stairs, he perched the bony butt of the railing and slid down it. Hopping onto the floor of the bottom where Ronan got halfway down a long flight. Tate had a funky little dance to the music only he could hear. He looked up the stairs. "Come on, slowpoke." Ronan shot Tate his patient glare, but Tate was too busy spinning one foot to notice. Ronan trotted down the last few steps and Tate dropped dancing. Together they headed to the curved yellow hallway of Belora's Fitness and Flex. When they were just halfway down the curve, they knew Grady was indeed in the fitness venue. Belora's entrance was fully lit, its archways illuminated like sparkling Marika of the Broadway show. Beyond the entrance, the lights of the venue were on too. Tate trotted through the archway. "Yo, Grady," he called out. "Dude, I hope you're not stuck." Ronan shook his head. He sighed and followed the uncouth co-worker into Belora's. He couldn't notice that Tate had stopped until he nearly plowed into him. "Sorry," Ronan said automatically as Tate stutter stepped forward and windmilling his arms to keep his balance. Tate didn't say anything, which is weird. Tate always had something to say. Ronan looked at Tate and then he quickly lifted his head to follow the direction of Tate's wide-eyed stare. The second Ronan looked upward, he wished he hadn't. He saw what grabbed Tate's attention immediately. It was impossible to miss. Ronan leaned over and covered his mouth. He felt faint. So he went to his knees. His breath was coming fast. The room started to spin. Tate crouched down next to him. "Tuck your head, big guy. Breathe slow." Tate draped an arm over Ronan's shoulder. "Just take a minute." Because Ronan didn't think about what he'd seen, he focused on Tate's out-of-character compassion. He'd never known Tate to be so nice. Why did he be acting like his usual jerky self? Tate patted Ronan's back. "That's it. Keep breathing slowly. Look at me." Ronan tried to keep instructed and turned to his coworker Tate. However, wasn't looking at Ronan. He was starting to look at the tubes behind the transparent wall. Ronan thought he would just seen inside one of those tubes. The stuff would heave. He clapped a hand over his mouth. Poor Grady. It was Grady, wasn't it? Ronan couldn't bring himself to look again. Is it Grady?" Ronan asked Tate. "Who else could it be?" Tate snapped. "Ah, So there was Tate, whom Ronan knew so well. But Ronan stopped. He didn't want to speak out loud. He mangled, twisted, broken limbs and torso that used to be Grady. Seeing it had been bad enough. Talking about it now would somehow make it worse. Ronan wondered if he had ever erased it from his mind an image of Grady's wrecked body suspended upside down in a tube, tugged back and forth unthinkably in a tight series of tube zigzags. How would Ronan ever forget Grady's misshapen face and one remaining good eye plastered against the plastic? He was sure he'd never be able to wipe this memory bank's Grady's empty socket of the eyeball dangling down of Belora's metal fingers. Would he ever tormented by the image of Grady's 5'6" frame, elongated to nearly twice that length? Grady's body now deconstructed and strewn through the tube. What happened? Ronan asked. It was a stupid question, of course. It was clear in the few seconds that he looked at Grady's disfigured body. Oh, what had happened? Clearly, Belora's designer had included a failsafe, some command that told her getting unstuck was less important to make sure the person was helping wouldn't get injured. The robot was outrageously flawed. This is bad, Tate said. Ronan wanted to say something sarcastic, but wasn't appropriate. He swallowed and licked his lip. I don't look long enough, he said, and I can't look again. Is he alive? Tate looked at the steps toward the transparent wall. Ronan watched Tate, and he didn't look beyond the tube again. Tate squinted the tube. I don't know. It's hard to see whether he's breathing. Ronan flipped his stomach flicked over. He dropped his head. His eyes moistened. He and Grady hadn't been close to anything. They were just co-workers, but Grady'd been a nice guy. And a nice guy or not, no one deserved to die like that. Tate inhaled sharply. Ronan's head snapped up. What? Tate looked out another step toward the tubes. Oh man, he said. I think I just saw him blink. Ronan groaned. You can't even imagine. Didn't even want to imagine what Grady was feeling. In a too long glimpse, he'd forgotten Ronan had seen that not only were Grady's limbs contorted to impossible proportions, but his uniform was saturated with blood. Many of his bone breaks must have been compound fractures. Ronan had only guessed, not that he wanted to, how many times Grady's shattered bone had been jabbed through his skin. Yeah, Tate said. He just did it again. He's alive. Tate sounded calm and his voice was tight. Ronan found it absurdly comforting that Tate was affected by what he was looking at. Maybe the guy wasn't so shallow as Ronan thought, although Tate was looking directly at the bloody Grady as if gawking at an exhibit in the zoo. Ronan forced himself to stand. He had to concentrate and make sure his legs held him up. We need to get him out of there, Ronan said. Tate slowly turned and gaggled at Ronan. And just sure gonna be about that. We have no way to get into those tubes. We need to call 911. Ronan reached in his pocket and pulled his phone. Before he could lift it, though, Tate plucked it from his hand. Dude, Tate said, clutching his phone. What are you thinking? I'm thinking we need to get him out of there. And if we can't do that, we need someone here who can. Tate shook his head. We can't do that. Ronan raised both eyebrows. What in the world do you mean? Tate didn't answer. He just looked like a Grady. Give me my phone. Ronan tried to grab it. Tate hopped out of the reach. I can't do that, dude. Ronan traded his glare. Tate looked at his head. You don't get it. If we call someone, it's going to come out of what we left him here alone. Totally against the rules. That's what I said earlier. Yeah, I know, but no matter what you said, we left him. This happened. He waved towards the tubes. Ronan didn't look at the direction of the gesture. Obviously, this venue's totally screwed up if this happened, Tate went on. If Grady survives, he would make no problem making his workers' comp claim. Heck, most likely his family, because he didn't know how he could survive that. Tate waved his hand in the tubes. Might even be able to sue Fazbear Entertainment if the injury is intentional. An employee or surviving family could sue. And intentional is defined by having certain knowledge in the injury would occur and willfully disregarding that knowledge. Ronan stared at Tate open mouthed. How do you know all that? Tate shrugged. My old man's a lawyer. No kidding. Ronan shook his head. But Fazbear Entertainment would have known for someone who just injured in there. He waved the direction of the tubes. Tate snorted. Are you kidding me? He too gestured at the tubes. Do you see the size of those lower tubes? No way a full-size man would make it through those. And yet, they wanted one of us to test it. They had known we'd get hurt. It would have been hard to make a case. Ronan rubbed his forehead. Okay, fine, but that means they deserve to be sued. Why can't we get him out? Tate turned his back to the tube and stood right back in front of Roman. Then he spoke again. His voice was even, and he spoke slowly as if explaining algebra to a 10-year-old. Grady's injuries are a liability nightmare. What do you think Fazbear Entertainment is going to do with the two employees who left Grady here by himself to get stuck? Ronan thought hard. If they had stayed, they would have been with Grady. He still would have gotten stuck. He would open his mouth and say that, but Tate spoke first. And even if we argued that it would have been happened anyway, he broke protocol and the result was disastrous. They had declared grounds to fire us, and I don't know about you, but I don't want to get fired. Ronan thought that wouldn't happen with his new mortgage payment if he lost the job. No, he didn't want to get fired either. But if those new house more important than another human's life? Obviously not. Even so, Ronan said, we have to help him. His voice broke. He couldn't even find the words to describe it. Yeah, I know, Tate said. I know. He too cleared his throat. But look at him. The minute anyone tries to move him, he's going to excruciating pain and he'll bleed out before they can get him to the hospital. There's no way he can survive. Ronan had a terrible thought. But if he's blinking, that means he's conscious and he wouldn't say it. And yeah, he's probably in a horrible pain. I get it. But then again, maybe not. Look at how his spine is all screwed up. Maybe he's paralyzed. There's no way to tell, Tate said. Blinking could be a reflex or something. Ronan didn't look at Grady's spine. He latched to the hope that Grady didn't feel any agony racking through his body. You really think so? Ronan asked. Tate nodded vehemently. I really do. Ronan chewed his lower lip. As if sensing Roman's indecision, Tate moved in and put his hand on Ronan's forearm. This sucks, the big one. It really does, but Grady might as well be dead. And anything you do to help him now might get us in really big trouble. There's no upside to us calling anyone. Not for Grady and not for us. He's gone. Whether dead or soon to be. Maybe he was even blinking. Maybe it was just death spasm. I bet he'd be the first one to say there's no point in us throwing away good jobs and maybe even our careers by letting anyone know we let him stay here. Ronan kept chewing on his lip. Tate was making sense. But this was Tate, one of the most self-interested people Ronan ever met. Who cared if Tate made sense? Then again, what would be the point of losing their jobs if Grady had already dead, if he wouldn't survive the extraction? Ronan thought about the nice house and his loving friends in the knitting club. He thought of all the lustrous yarn he'd recently bought because of his pay was so good. But he'd give all that up? Tate gripped Ronan's arm. Listen, all we have to do is walk away. We leave. The CCTV isn't installed yet, so we're not tracking us. They'll just say we left at the quitting time like usual. Grady might have come back on his own. We didn't know about it. Ronan let his head and forced himself to look at Grady again. He wasn't going to abandon the dying man. The last he could do was acknowledge the man before he left. Ronan had to cover his mouth again and gazed upon Grady's misshapen body form. He clutched his stomach, sure he was going to leave. Keep it together, big guy, Tate said softly. Ronan brushed away tears and looked into Grady's one remaining eye. The eye looked back at Ronan, unblinking. Ronan noticed that Grady's brown iris was cloudy. Was he dead already? No, the eye twitched. He was still alive. It was Grady thinking. He stared out at his co-workers. Was he thinking? Would a man be conditioned with still rational thought? If Grady was thinking, Ronan couldn't tell. Grady's face was so smashed that the expression was impossible. Was Grady hoping that they'd have him, or was he wishing they'd go and let him die? Ronan dropped his gaze. Bye, Grady, he whispered. Tate looked at Ronan's arm and took him away from the tubes. Gently, Tate led Ronan out of Belora's. Ronan half closed his eyes against the building lights. In Belora's archway, Tate ushered him into the yellow hallway. He wouldn't let himself think about what they were walking away from. Instead, he concentrated on making his legs work. He focused on breathing in and out. All we have to do, Tate said as they followed the covered hallway, heading down toward the stairs, is come to work as usual in the morning. He'll be dead by then. Grady's remaining eye watched his co-workers disappeared around the corner of the yellow hallway. He had been able to hear anything Ronan and Tate were said. Even though his ears had still worked, they were only body parts that had avoided massive trauma. The tube of transparent wall muted around. He had, however, heard enough. Grady had wanted to cry even more than he already had when Tate had hypothesized Grady was paralyzed. If only, yes, Grady's spine was broken, but somehow his nerve endings were functioning just fine. The totality of his body was one throbbing mass of indescribable suffering. Grady didn't hate his co-workers for leaving him to die. He probably would have done the same thing if he had been in their place. He needed this job just as badly, but he wished they'd stay with him for a little while longer. Belor, who had been silently pulling on Grady the whole time, Ronan and Tate had been standing there talking, spoke up. You're stuck. I'll help you. She yanked harder, and Grady heard a series of wet pops and two cracks. New waves of pace saluted the body. Grady's arms cascaded through the whole body. Grady could even protest as he saw to the system. Even if he could have, he wouldn't have. He was dying, and the only company he had was Belor. He wouldn't have sent her away now for anything. If Grady had to die trapped in the worst nightmare, he didn't want to do it alone. Even if Belor's quartered on feeling grub was better than nothing. Belor spoke up one more time. You're stuck. I want to help. Wow. Wow, and just wow. That was an ending to a book. I will forever say this. I've said this a million times over. But the FNAF Tales of the Pizzaplex books are the hardest books ever made. Like, they are crazy good. Impossibly good. Insanely good. But, yeah. Today we read pages 201 and 217, and next time we'll be reading a different book, so this really doesn't matter. What does matter is that we need to go to... I don't know if this is gonna... Is this gonna... Oh, yep. Hello. The tier list. That is what matters in this situation. This is basically the same tier list as before, except now I get to move around a new book. This time the book is going to be FNAF Tales of the Pizzaplex number 3. Where is that at? Oh. Hold on. Oh, okay, here they are. My bad. Yeah, okay. Sorry, I didn't know how this works. Okay, yep, so now we have this one. It's not gonna go in B. Honestly, oy vey. Okay, let's look at the entire book again. So the first story, Somniphobia, follows the kid who wants to become better in school and ends up going into a dream state and gets eaten by a dog. It's a pretty good, it's, I'm gonna say this. It's not going into B or C. It's either A or S, and I'm trying to think. Pretty good story. Just pretty good. There's a train near my house, and it is going absolutely crazy. And I don't know why. Okay. But yeah, no, that story went absolutely, like, it was super cool, and just, yeah, it was just super cool. The B story, story number 2, or, what was it titled? Nope, that's the book we just got done with. Pressure? They should have changed the name. But Pressure made me meet one of my most, like, literally my favorite FNAF character, Luca. Luca, honestly, it was my favorite. He is now my favorite, like, character ever. Um, I think my rule with the S tier was I can only have one Tales of the Pizza Plex book and one Fazbear Frights. Honestly, this is still a high A, but my new favorite Tales of the Pizza Plex book is Somniphobia, just because of Luca. Because imagine this: you're being spear chucked, and you're like, you're dying. You're dying a horrible death in a spear locked suit, but you see a pedophile. This man with his dying breath as a football star, instead of getting out and living, he goes into the fray that is, you know, the bad guy. Keith, I think his name was. What was his name? I could probably find it in here. Probably find it in here. Probably find it in here. Nope, that's Grady. Earl. He goes to this guy, this creepy guy named Earl, who's being creepy to girls and looking at them weird. Basically a pedophile. And with his dying breath, chokes him to death while dying of his own injuries. That is my favorite freaking ending ever. Even crazier than the girl being trapped in her own subconscious, which we learn in Clethophobia. Actually, Clethophobia is actually her brain exploding. Like, she literally dies to her own injuries. We learn that from the kids' part of the story, which is insane. So this not only is a good story on top of a good story, but it actually answers the other stories, such as Haps. All of Haps. It answers Haps. Now, actually, to go on to Clethophobia, just the story of the kids, I didn't understand why there was a story of the kids. That was weird. Of Eric, Alicia, Kim, and I think that's really, and Cole. That was just weird. I don't know why the heck they did that. So weird start. I thought they were gonna go back and forth with it, but no. But that ending with him being scared, it was kind of mediocre. But considering all the lore and reversing of it, it was pretty good. Honestly, I think the number 3 book shouldn't have been called Somniphobia. I think it genuinely should have been called Clethophobia and have a picture of Ballora. That would have looked a lot better. But I understand it's Moondrop. You're supposed to get the main Pizzaplex boys on the book covers. I understand that. And not just the old guys. I understand. But honestly, I still think that would have been better. And yeah. Honestly, that is my new favorite. Maybe it's a bias because it's new. Look at all the other books we get to tackle. This one is the one I'm excited for most, and we're not going to tackle it for a minute. But, yeah. Why are these not out yet? That's weird. But yeah, let's save that. We're gonna name this one Somniphobia. Somniphobia. Save. Save. Boom. I'm just gonna pray that it's saved. Oh no, it's just loading. But yeah, super good story, honestly. Just super good. But yeah. That's gonna be it for us today. I hope you guys have a super fantastic, wonderful day. We're not gonna have another book for a couple days. And yeah, that should be good. Next, I will post well, by the time this video comes out, the bookmark will be fully posted. But yeah, the bookmark will be fully done. And that'll be super cool. So, super fantastic, wonderful day. People like, be fishing. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.